So the idea of the tenant conventions came together through the San Francisco Anti-Displacement Coalition, which is a group of tenant organizations and advocates and organizers and lawyers who decided that, who got together around the condo conversion law that was almost passed, and then eventually changed and then passed for the benefit of tenants last year. We realized that when we get together and work together instead of separately, that we actually still have a lot of power in the city and we can make big changes happen. So we decided to continue to work together and bring in more groups and try to build more power around tenant issues. This whole idea started with the idea of trying to put a ballot initiative together because we were thinking that the Board of Supervisors was not going to pass the legislation we wanted to see. So we thought that if we didn't want a law to be watered down too much, that we were going to have to put it on the ballot. That's what's happened in the past with reforms that happened at City Hall. What we realized, though, is as this process began, things really took off. In the last 6 months, we've seen a resurgence of the tenants movement all over the city. And I think the fact that we're standing in a room here today is a sign of that. And as this process began, some new laws started getting introduced at City Hall, and it looks like things are moving. It might not have to be a ballot initiative that we wind up having to do. But so we're still here to talk. So instead of just focusing on the ballot initiative, we're thinking about what changes in general, what the biggest problems are that we're seeing, to try to find out from you all what ideas you have, and do this bottom up and try to figure out where we want to focus our energies as a tenant movement in San Francisco.
How do we get to 8 votes on the board in order to override a mayoral veto?
Well,
elect the right people.
So we're going to get to that later. So hopefully, there's just a little bit of background I wanted to give folks. I know there's a big range of experience in this room, so I'm going to try to keep it short. If you go to the 3rd page in your packet, there's a little tiny bit about the legal context. Our rights in terms of housing mainly come from local laws, and then those laws are limited by state laws. So I know there's been a lot of discussion about the Ellis Act and Costa-Hawkins, just a little bit of information about that. A number of buildings, about half the tenancies in San Francisco, are covered by the San Francisco Rent Ordinance. This only covers buildings that are built before 1979, and there's certain exceptions, even for buildings that were built before 1979. For example, condos, when the landlord lives in the same unit, and when a building is run by a nonprofit. There's other exceptions as well, but those are the main exceptions. Single family, so then there's rent. There's 2 sections of the rent ordinance that protects tenants. One is rent control, which limits the ability for landlords to increase rents more than a specified amount per year. Interestingly, the amount they're able to increase it is tied to inflation, and that actually passed because of a tenant convention process that happened just like this one some number of years ago. And that was an idea that came from the tenants themselves. It wasn't an idea that the organizers and that the lawyers and the policy people came up with. It was an idea that came from the grassroots, and that's why we're doing this again. There are exceptions to rent control. So there's some units that are covered under the rent ordinance that are covered under some kinds of protections, but don't get rent control. And the main one that isn't protected is single-family homes, and that is because it was a state law passed called Costa-Hawkins. So that's a limitation we have on what we can protect in San Francisco right now because of problems at the state level. In addition, when the original tenant moves out of a multi-tenant unit, like when the original roommate moves out, that tenancy is also not protected under, that's also a tenancy where the landlord can raise the rent. And obviously, if everybody moves out of a unit, then the landlord can raise the rent to whatever they want it to be. So the other major protection that the San Francisco Rent Ordinance provides is just cause. So basically, in a rent protected apartment in San Francisco, a landlord can only evict for 15 reasons. The main reason, and then some of those are fault evictions and some of those are no fault evictions. The no fault evictions are the ones that are getting a lot of press right now: Ellis Act, OMIs, demolition, and relocation, both temporary and permanent relocation for rehabilitation, for rehabbing the building. There's a bunch of charts around here showing how much worse it's gotten in terms of no fault evictions. I also want to talk a little bit about fault evictions too, because a lot of fault evictions are the kind of thing where in the past, when it wasn't so crazy in San Francisco in terms of rents, people could work it out. If somebody,
What is OMI?
owner move-in, I apologize.
Okay.
When an owner moves into a building, they can evict even though there's no fault of the tenant. Fault evictions are mainly the main ones we see at the Eviction Defense Collaborative are non-payment, nuisance, which is when people are causing problems for other people, allegedly causing problems for other tenants or for the landlord. Breach of lease, when the landlord is claiming that they broke some part of their agreement, like having subletters or something like that, which they've always had sometimes. Having pets, and they've always had pets, things like that. And then habitual late payment. Those are the main kinds of fault evictions we see. And so, there's a lot of times that people move out or they think they have to move, even though one of these things aren't, even though it's not a just cause. One of the main ones we've had problems with in recent years is when there's foreclosures or there's a sale of a building. That is not a just cause in San Francisco. Hopefully everybody in this room knows that already, but if you don't, not a just cause in San Francisco just because someone sold a building. One of these 15 reasons has to be why somebody gets, why a landlord is evicting you. And there's a couple of limitations on the kind of things we can pass to expand rent control in San Francisco. We can't limit the Ellis Act through city law. There are some things we can do. There's some ideas that are in your packet later on in terms of ideas of things we can do, but we can't get rid of the Ellis Act at the local level. Because of that, we passed out a flyer for a action that's happening in Sacramento, because there's now so much pushback about the Ellis Act that maybe we will be able to change it at the state level.
Thank everyone for being here, and Happy New Year. 새해 복 많이 받으세요. May you have much luck and fortune in the new year. My name is Jane Kim, and I have the honor of representing this district, District 6, which includes the South of Market, the Tenderloin, and Treasure Island. And it is really exciting to be here today with our coalition of stakeholders to announce the vote today on a really historic piece of legislation, the Fair Chance Act. So to get, yes. And so why was this legislation written? And it was written for the individuals, many who are standing behind me today, but also individuals throughout San Francisco, like Donnell Fuller, who was fired just this past year from his janitorial job for failing to remember and tell his employer about a 1974 arrest for trespassing. It's for a woman like Sandy, who won the lottery for a below market rate unit at NEMA, a new development down the street in San Francisco, but was disqualified because she was unable to pay child support over a decade ago, even though she served time for that failure already. It's also for a woman named Denise, who was told that she shouldn't bother to apply for a job as a cook because she had a conviction for shoplifting when she was a high school student. For 1 in 4 adults throughout this country, an arrest or a conviction record is a stigma that means you need not apply. These real-life examples are obstacles preventing individuals who are actively looking to change their lives by getting a job or getting stable housing. We know that a stable job and housing are the two most critical factors in reducing recidivism. What if we could change that reality so that employers and housing providers could still obtain all the relevant information that they needed to make responsible decisions, and at the same time, 65 million Americans who live with an arrest or conviction record in their past could get a fair chance in presenting their qualifications first. Over the last year, our office worked closely with Supervisor Malia Cohen and a wide range of stakeholders, including civil rights advocates, nonprofit and private housing providers, the business community, and law enforcement to develop the Fair Chance Act. Our goal was to create a law that would reduce the racial disparities in our criminal justice system, improve community well-being, and reduce the cost of criminal justice, saving taxpayer dollars. We knew the success of this policy hinged on a big tent approach with stakeholders that were invested in making this law work. In a testament to a year's worth of teamwork, we're proud to have a wide range of public and private partners to bring the Fair Chance Act to the full board for this historic vote. So I want to bring up a couple of speakers here today. And first I wanted to bring up my lovely co-sponsor, Supervisor Malia Cohen, who represents the southeastern sector of San Francisco, which includes the Bayview Viz Valley and the Dogpatch Potrero Hill.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Had to take a moment to think about it. Supervisor Kim, it has been a long time. This is so exciting. We are introducing landmark legislation here today. History is going to be made here. And I just want to thank everyone for being here. This rally is nearly 1 year in the making. I'm proud to have the opportunity to work with all the residents and nonprofit partners, housing providers, and representatives of the business community on this critical piece of legislation. Now, it's no secret, as Supervisor Kim mentioned, I represent the southeastern part of city, Bayview, Hunters Point, Visitation Valley, as well as Potrero Hill. And I have the highest percentage of formerly incarcerated individuals and with those with convictions and conviction histories. And the data doesn't lie. And what it's telling us is that access to housing and employment opportunities are key. And frankly, I would say it's life or death. It's a key component in preventing recidivism and public safety, more importantly, to the overall community. Now, this legislation is long overdue, and I believe that it will begin to help us to eliminate the conscious and the unconscious biases that exist in hiring and housing individuals with a conviction history. As a city, it's really time for us to help change the perception of people who have served their time, who have paid their debt, and want to be hardworking, productive members in our community. No longer should we be jeopardizing and penalizing this group of folks. I want to thank our partners here today. I want to echo what I've heard from Supervisor Kim and her staff. All of us, or none, are you guys here on the stage with us somewhere around here? Okay, thank you very much. All of us are none. We've got legal services for prisoners with children, Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights, the National Employment Law Center, Power. Where's Power? Are you guys here, Power? Okay, Power. Coalition for Homelessness, Hospitality House, Coleman Advocates, Jobs with Justice, the Chamber of Commerce, Small Business Commission, and our very own HRC. Thank you, everyone. This is incredible.
So next we want to bring up someone who works very intimately with many individuals that get tied up in our criminal justice system and can speak to this issue better than many of us can here, and that is our public defender, Jeff Adachi.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Supervisor Kim, for your leadership on this issue. And I'm very proud to be here today with Supervisors Cohen and Campos, and hopefully all of the 11 members of the board who are all going to vote yes on the Fair Chance Ordinance. You know, I remember it was 9 years ago when this issue was first raised before the Human Rights Commission. And I have to say, at that time, I was skeptical, you know, whether or not this issue would receive the kind of mainstream attention that it deserved, primarily because we didn't think people cared. And the folks who have brought the ball down to the field where we are right now are really the grassroots organizations, like All of Us or None. And by their example, they've been able to demonstrate that you can take an issue, which at first glance may seem to be an unpopular one, and make it mainstream because it's the right thing to do. I think it's great that the Chamber of Commerce is here supporting this. This is truly a united front. In my office represents over 20,000 people a year who get caught up in the criminal justice system. And this is a problem that we've seen for years and years. That's why in 1998 we started the Clean Slate program, which helps clear records for over 2,000 people a year. And people can come to our office and at no cost at all have their records cleaned and cleared. But it's a very laborious process. And I think one of the things that discourages people about it is that it takes so long. It takes you 6 months or a year. So if you have a job pending and you put your application in and you're waiting to have your record cleared, it's still going to be an impediment to getting a job. What's also very dangerous, I think, when you don't have this kind of policy in place, is that people don't apply for jobs. They give up before they even apply because they believe that they're not going to be considered. And so we really need your help and the media's help in getting the word out there to people that once this legislation passes in the city of San Francisco, you can apply for a job and your past is not going to be held against you in terms of determining your qualifications. So thank you very much for being here. Let's go on and win this. There are a lot of other reforms that we have to pass in Sacramento to make it easier for people to get jobs. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff, and thank you for your leadership. And just a little fact about the Clean Slate program, and these are folks that are trying to turn their lives around. Only a third of those that seek assistance in the Clean Slate program are actually able to find employment. So these are individuals that are looking for jobs, looking for housing. And out of this pool, only a third are able to find employment. And of this third, the vast majority make only $3,000 a year. So this legislation is so important in helping to find more opportunities for these individuals. The next person I want to bring up is a community member, an organizer who really led the grassroots campaign to gather signatures and bring together the Fair Chance Coalition here over the last year, delivering 1,700 signatures on a petition throughout San Francisco, and that is Bill Gandy.
Hi everybody, how are you? Well, I'm here today because this is incredible. And you start a thing sometimes, you don't really know what's going to happen. But we knew that it was a great cause. And I want you all to give a round of applause to everyone here, because all of these people, these are the people who did it. These are the people here. This gentleman here is from the Chamber of Commerce. I mean, we've got people sticking their necks out. These are politicians who can't afford, wait a minute, they can't afford to look soft on crime. Hold on. Our society is ruled by rules. I know because I got in big trouble with them. Changed my life though, because then I decided that I wasn't gonna just be who I thought I was gonna be good. And it changed me. So that was the real quest, that was the change. So the system does work. So now I work for the very people who I offended. And these people, now I'm even giving further to help others who need that fair chance. And that's what we're getting today. Everybody got to give a round of applause right here, right now, right there. Okay, because politicians can't afford that if they want to have a job next time. And everybody knows what that's like, especially if you have a job. So this legislation is so crucial. I was very lucky to have a lot of skills. So when this hit me, I still found work. I'm a computer programmer. So I was always able to get work. I could work in Florida and still stay home. So that wasn't the necessary problem, but I decided I wanted to get back out again. And I was really, really privileged and fortunate to go and hit straight up a company that really took a person's skill set and not what happened in the past. I screwed up. I don't want to have a life sentence of poverty or unemployment, which is secondarily imposed. The judicial system did their job. So they imposed, I did it, and I'm good for it now. I'll never do those things again. But others need that chance, they need that fair chance. And they haven't been able to get it. And then you wonder why people do weird things. They're trying to survive. They're real. And when you can't, if you're out of the game, what do? Well, you sell popcorn on the sidelines, maybe. Maybe. Others have to do other things like scalp tickets in the parking lot. And others, worse still. So let's not let it get to that. Those individuals don't need to get to that. They figured it out, they got it. And they want a fair chance. And that's what this is all about. I want to thank you so much. God bless everyone in San Francisco.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you so much. The next person I'd like to bring up is a really important stakeholder representing our private sector and our business community. And we are really grateful that him and the Chamber of Commerce stuck it through with us, because when they first saw this legislation, they were like, another regulation on business here in San Francisco? But when we talked it through about what the goal was and what it was to make our city safer, to employ more people that wanted to work, they stood with us. They attended many, many meetings to figure out how we can make this work for businesses and accomplish the goal that we want to see. So I want to bring up Jim Lazarus.
Thank you, Supervisor. I just want to make a simple point to thank you and Supervisor Cohen for doing something that doesn't happen very often, and that was reaching out to stakeholders early in a process. Often we're brought in when the legislation is introduced, when it's already about to have a committee hearing. Let's quickly go through it. Or is there a chance politically, and maybe not, to make changes that make it work better for people that have to live with regulation every day? But this process, it took a while, but it was a good process that resulted in stakeholders, both employers and employee representatives, to sit down and work through legislation that can make a real difference for job applicants, while at the same time being something that employers can live with and be proud to support. And it's not just the chamber, but we convened many partner organizations: small business, large business, restaurant association, hotel council, small business network, and others, to bring a cross-section of employers to the table with the supervisors and the advocates. And we appreciate the cooperation of everybody that I think has resulted in legislation that will go through 11-0 and be happily signed by the mayor in a couple of weeks. Thank you.
We could not have gained unanimous support backing without the backing of Chamber of Commerce and so many businesses here. So I just want to thank you for your commitment. We also want to recognize Target. I believe Tiffany Ma is here as well. They are the second largest retail employer in the country. And a couple of months before we introduced the Fair Chance Act, they decided to ban the box throughout the nation. And we are really proud to have them here in San Francisco and appreciate their leadership. The next person I'd like to bring up is a supervisor that has strongly supported this legislation from a year ago when advocates had brought this to our offices. And that is Supervisor David Campos, who represents the Mission in Portola. Please come up.
Thank you, everyone. I'll be very brief, but can we hear it again for the ladies in red, for pushing this forward? The point about this for me is that, I know that in my life I have made mistakes. All of us make mistakes. But I think that the message that this is sending is that, it's okay if you make a mistake, but if you're actually trying to turn your life around, that you yourself are not the mistake. And it's really, it's about having faith and belief in redemption. And if a city can stand for redemption, that city should be San Francisco, and I'm so honored to be a part of this movement. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Supervisor Campos. Next up, we have one of our residents of Community Housing Partnership's Essex Apartment. She is a lifelong San Franciscan and has helped gather signatures for the Fair Chance Act in several of our neighborhoods. Tireless at outreach and explaining the need for ban the box reform on behalf of this campaign, Roylene Mixon.
Thank you, everybody. I'm happy to be here today. For the last year, this year, I've been going around getting signatures for Ban the Box. I met so many different people, and these people are down and out and out of their luck. I see a lot of smart homeless people out there that needs jobs and are afraid to apply because of arrest records. But my community really needs help, and our children are really suffering, and the communities are suffering. So I'm here today to support this act. And we really need this in our community. And San Francisco has the means and the needs to do this for our people in our communities. San Francisco is one of the best cities in the United States, and we have some of the best people in the United States. And I would like to thank Supervisor Kim for having us here today. And I really enjoy working with these people on Ban the Box. I met a lot of different people down on their luck, but they're beautiful people, and they just need a little fair chance and help. Thank you.
Thank you. And our last speaker, but not least, I want to bring up Matthew Martini, who is also a member of the Fair Chance campaign, part of All of Us or None, and an attorney. So I want to bring him up to close out our... I want to bring him up to close out our press conference.
Matthew.
Well, it's extremely intimidating to follow this august group, and I want to correct an impression. I was a former attorney. 20 years ago today, I pled guilty in northern Florida for a marijuana conspiracy charge. But I'm also a lifelong San Francisco resident since 1957. And nothing has given me more joy and pleasure than to work with a group such as All of Us or None, which my daughter brought me into about 6 years ago, because it brings up the best in what this city really stands for. And when I said, well, I will get all of our supervisors, and certainly my supervisor, Mark Farrell, in District 2, to sign on, because they should be supported unanimously. And here we are, it is. And some of the constituents in District 2 have been residents of San Francisco and business people like myself for over 50 years now, are well in support of this measure. It's more than a fair chance, it's just an equal chance for everyone who is re-entering and coming back into our city. So I thank you very much, and I'm very happy today that we'll be proceeding with hopefully getting this ordinance passed.
Yay!
The year of work has really fruition with a wide and broad coalition of stakeholders supporting this legislation. We encourage you to stay for this historic vote. The board meeting will start at 2 o'clock. And just to reiterate how important this legislation is, yes, there are forms of ban the box that have passed in over 10 states and 56 municipalities, but this will be the very first legislation that actually bans the box. Sorry, let me make sure I get this right. That covers affordable housing, below market rate units, contractors with cities, and private employers with 20 or more employees. So this is a truly historic vote. I'm so excited to be here today. I'm looking forward to a unanimous vote at the board.
You did add some input to the MCLR ballot initiative. You were saying, I wanted to learn more about what kind of language, how you added to the language.
Well, it was the first group that really approached me about the needs of people who provide for people that are low income and for low income people. And so we worked out a portion of the legislation that enables and really gives some rewards to people who are willing to provide for not just low income disabled patients and veterans, but also families that have children that are either chronically or severely ill, to be able to get their medicine for free and to be able to get sort of a category assigned to what is a compassionate caregiver. And it's sort of part of how do we keep California compassionate